What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. It's Neil from 2AF. Thanks for joining us again for another one of these videos. If you don't already know, the end of the month or towards the end of the month, we always come out with another video that talks about guns and their history or a specific gun story. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. So obviously I'm a day late coming out with this on January 1st, but we'll have these coming pretty much the end of every month. Today we've got the HK tannodized 416 SBR. It's a lot goes into making these, so there might be a little more to talk about. Might go a little longer than usual, but I'll try and keep it brief. I've done a few of these for different people, and there's a few ways to do it. You can go with one of the clone ones, like from Brownells, or you can use an HK factory MR556, or even some of, especially the uppers, the 416 uppers that are out there. Probably the easiest, and I don't know, I think probably maybe even the most cost-effective, even though none of this is really cost-effective, way to do it was I started with a factory, right off the shelf, MR556. And then I just continued to change everything until we have what you see here today. The two really big challenges were the barrel and the coloring of the receivers, because at that time the tan HKs were not a thing. They do have them now, but they're still pretty rare. So when I got the gun, standard MR556, this one, you know, there's different rails and different barrel profiles, but this one had a heavier barrel profile with the quad rail on it, and of course the whole gun was black. So we sent the barrel off to Nefarious Arms, and they chopped it to the appropriate 10 point whatever it is length. But then I also have them reprofile it a little bit so that it wasn't quite as heavy as those really thick, heavy MR556 barrels. And kind of one of the cool things that they did was they tell you, if you run this gun unsuppressed, put a standard carbine buffer and a standard carbine spring in there. HKs from the factory are fairly heavily gassed, so a lot of gas going through the gun. They didn't really change anything with the gas block, and they said if you run it without a silencer, standard carbine spring, standard carbine buffer. So I've been doing that, and man, it runs super flat. It's been very, very reliable with a variety of types of ammo. I've had this gun for at least a few years now. It took almost 2 years to complete because of all the work that you had to do to it. But I've shot it a fair bit in that time through classes and matches, and then of course just on my own, and zero malfunctions, which has been great, unsuppressed with the standard spring and buffer. Now Nefarious Arm tells you if you use a suppressor on the gun, use the factory HK spring and buffer that come with the gun. They are noticeably heavier, and the spring is noticeably stiffer than a factory carbine buffer and spring. So when the can is on there, use the factory spring, and you'll have it sprung well enough and weighted well enough to use the can pretty reliably. So that covers the barrel. I do have the standard HK 212A, the Surefire 212A flash hider here for the Legacy Series suppressors. I do have a Legacy Series suppressor from Surefire for this. However, I purchased it off of an individual. It still hasn't improved yet, so I haven't shot it yet with that. The next big challenge, of course, is the color of the receivers. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can get them re-anodized, or you can do them in Cerakote. Now the factory HK tannodized color is a pretty specific shade of tan, and you can get pretty close with Cerakote. They look pretty good when you do that. However, in my experience, Cerakote hasn't been as durable a finish as the anodize, so I chose to do anodize. I sent it off to US Anodize, or maybe it was American Anodizing, I can't remember. But at the advice of a couple of people who knew a little bit more about anodizing than I did, they suggested doing clear anodize, and there's a few reasons for that which I will go over. Probably what inspired me to make this gun was an acquaintance of ours, Augie Kim from TNVC. I'm not even sure if he was with TNVC at the time, but he was down here and he had his, and man, it just looked pretty legit. I liked it a lot, and I wanted to do one. And it was his suggestion to do clear anodize instead of trying to do a tan anodize. Now, if you do tan anodize, you have a chance of getting it to look spot on, but it's just a chance. You could also get it back looking super gold looking. You could get it plum looking. You can get it kind of orangey looking. There's a lot of different shades that it could turn out, and some of those shades are okay, and some of those to me would not have been okay. So I didn't really want to do anodized tan. I didn't really want to do the Cerakote. I wanted the stronger anodized finish, and Augie was one person that suggested doing clear anodized. Now, to do the clear anodized, you have a very consistent result. You pretty much know what you're going to get when it's all finished. It is not the same as what you would see on the tan HK anodized gun, but it's pretty close, and it's very safe. Another person who really suggested the same thing and helped me find an anodizer to do it was Nick from Reptilia Corp. He has experience with anodizing their own parts, including they do clear anodized parts. So he helped out as well. And so that's what we did. We sent the upper and lower off to be anodized tan. To be anodized and clear. And I was really happy with the result. Now after that, all the markings that were on the gun, they're gone because they strip off the black anodized, which also took off the kind of the white paint mark or whatever it was that HK had on there. And so you couldn't really see any of the markings. You could see some of them. You couldn't really see any of the markings well. They were all super subdued and, kind of muted in with the anodized. So we sent them off to be re-laser engraved and re-marked. Now, when you do that, of course, you have to keep the same serial number of the gun on the gun, which there's a serial number here. I had them also do the serial number on the upper. We have the markings over here, of course, the warning marks on the front. But you can change the name of the model. So of course we got HK on there, we've got the same serial number, but at that time you are allowed to go from HK MR556D is what I think it said. No, HK MR556A1 was the original marking, and we had them mark it HK 416D. Now I haven't yet. You can see I kind of started to do it here, but I didn't like the way it was turning out, so I didn't really finish it here. I didn't do that color fill of the white and the red, white for safe and the red for fire, and then also for the auto mark. This is just a semi-auto gun, so it's not going to go there. But I plan to do that at some point, and hopefully it'll turn out as well as some of the others I've seen. Now all the other parts on the lower and the upper for that matter, they're all factory HK. Your charging handle, your bolt group, your safety. I did get one of the RAL color dust covers. I hope at one point to get one of the RAL color, what's up PJ? One of the RAL color safeties. I think actually the clone guns did not use the, oh hey buddy, did not use the RAL color, but I kind of like the way they look on here, so I'll probably wind up doing that. As for furniture, we've got the Magpul CTR stock, Magpul Mo grip, Magpul Mo trigger guard. This is a single window E-mag that I usually keep in here. That's a factory trigger, and honestly, you know, the factory trigger on these is pretty decent for a factory style trigger. Factory mag release, etc., etc. We do have the Geisley rail on these. When I got mine, it was probably one of the very last of this kind of Geisley spec rail. So this isn't M-lock in here. This is just kind of standard vents, and then they have screw holes, which you'll get a couple of rails with the gun that you can screw in here and add accessories. I don't really like using those rails unless I have to, so that's one of the reasons anyway where I run this pretty slick. Now I do want to get to talk about the optic, and I have the Sun and Shadow stock riser here. There's a few things to talk about there. So traditionally when you saw these tannodized 416s, a lot of them came with EOTechs tannodized magnifiers, and the Wilcox riser that included the flipped side mount. Those Wilcox risers were going for a lot of money if you got the authentic ones. I'm not super opposed to spending a lot of money on parts that I want, but honestly, my big aversion to it was EOTech. I have a few guns with EOTechs already. I have a pretty relationship with EOTech right now. Not me personally, but just how I feel about their optics. I have 3 of them on other guns. Every single one of them kind of has some issue. They are functional, but they are not as they should be. So I did not want to use another gun with an EOTech. On the other hand, I had seen at least a few pictures of people who ran these guns with these Vortex 1-6s, and I did not have a scope like that on any of my other guns, and kind of wanted one, so I thought that was a good fit. So I got the Vortex Razor 1-6. I got it with the mill knobs and mill reticle. Honestly, every scoped rifle class I have been to, every seminar, every person that I know, all suggested go mill. Skip the MOA, skip the bullet drop. I mean, those aren't sin or anything like that, but the mill is really probably just a more useful and more precise option to go with. I used the Geisley 154 mount. When I first got it though, I didn't have one of those higher mounts, so I got one of the Geisley 193 mounts. Aside from not really liking the high mount, it was especially the wrong choice for this gun. If you don't already know, I don't know if you can see this little slope here that's on the back. On HK MR 556s and 416s, the top rail height is a little bit higher than on your standard gun. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like 0.2 something. So even though I have a 0.154 mount, this rail height is somewhere around, let's say, 0.25. That means using this 154 mount, my optic is actually about 1.8 or ish over the bore or the top of the rail. So I went back with the 154, but still found that my head was kind of up floating. So I wound up getting this Sun and Shadow cheek riser, which I think is great. Now there's a lot of cheek risers on the market that I could have picked, including the one from Magpul that just clips right onto these CTR stocks. But I like the Sun and Shadow one for a couple reasons. It attaches with Velcro here. So one thing that I liked about it is you have a little control over where this riser goes. Some of them they'll take up the whole stock. Some of them, they'll be really far back. This one you had some control. I could have put this Velcro further back. I could put it even a little further forward than it is, a little bit towards the middle. But the style of shooting that I do, the way that my head goes on the gun, I chose to put it mostly forward, right? And now this height, even though I'm using a standard 154 mount, when I get on the gun, this puts my cheek, I'm not crushing it on here, but as I put my head down and my cheek rests right on the riser, my eye is looking right through the center of this. I'm not seeing a lot of scope shadow. So I thought that was great. Without the riser, I was like this. I'd get behind here and my head was kind of floating behind here a little bit. And that isn't a terrible thing, but it's also not really ideal. So, went with the riser. I have the 0.5 riser, and that was really just the right height. I was able to place it pretty much wherever I wanted, along here that is, and that really allowed me to get my cheek on it. If you look at pictures of some people who use risers, you'll see sometimes their cheek isn't even on the riser because they don't have a lot of control over where the riser is, and where they put their head on the gun doesn't match up with where the riser is. So that, again, that was one of the things I really liked about these. You also have they're up to their Gen 2 risers now, and they have several heights, anything from 0.25, which is a little slimmer to this, up to like a night vision height, which is high. That's meant for the pretty high mounts and using it with night vision and gas masks, etc. Also, huge selection of colors. They also have different risers for different stocks. This is the CTR one, which fits on a wide variety of commercially available stocks. So I could, you could use this same riser on not every stock that's on the market, but on a bunch of them. So using this, even with the height of the rail, using a standard height mount, I still needed to get my head was up a little higher than normal. Using this, now my eye drops right behind here, and I don't really have to contend with parallax issues. Parallax is generally, long story short, if you're looking through this scope and your crosshair is not directly in the center, it can introduce parallax, and it is tough to shoot as precisely as you want to sometimes if you're dealing with that. So this cheek riser really helped me contend with that. What else can I talk about with the gun? Yeah, really, I think that's about it with the gun. I think I talked about all the parts that are on here, really. And if you're thinking about doing a tannodized HK 416 style gun, lots of options. We went over the options that I chose, and honestly, I've been really happy with. So any questions, feel free and contact me either here or over email, neil@2af.com, call or text, whatever you like. I'm always happy to help if I can. Stay tuned for the next video, which will be at the end of this month. Always remember, sign up for notifications on our website. We're always sending out new products that are coming in, stuff that's going on around the warehouse, and more. So usually we get one email a week. If it needs it, we send more than that, but it's really not very often that happens. So happy New Year's, everybody. Thanks for sticking in with us with the HK 416 tannodized model, and hope to see you out shooting sometimes. Thanks. It's Neil from 2AF.